I'll never forget the sound of the faucet that morning, just a hollow wheeze instead of the usual steady stream. At first, I thought it was a city problem. Maybe a pipe had burst, maybe construction crews were tinkering with the main line, but then I checked the bathroom sink, the shower, even the garden hose outside. Nothing. Not a drop. My family and I were suddenly standing in a silent house without water. My wife, Sarah, came down the hallway with panic in her eyes, holding a toothbrush with a streak of toothpaste still clinging to the bristles. "What's going on?" she asked. My two kids peeked around the corner, worried. I picked up the phone to call the city utilities department, but before I could, I noticed a folded notice stuck to our front door. The bold red letters across the top made my stomach sink. Water service terminated, HOA enforcement. I tore it down, scanning through the cold legal jargon until one line punched me in the chest. Due to unpaid fine of $50 related to non-compliant trash can storage, water access has been suspended pending resolution. A $50 fine? Trash cans? I had never received any notice about this before. My jaw clenched. My kids were already asking if they could go to school without showers. Sarah whispered, "This can't be legal, can it?" That's when the first wave of humiliation hit. We weren't just inconvenienced, we were powerless. I stormed over to the HOA office, gripping the notice like it was evidence in a crime. Inside sat the president, Patricia Whitmore, a woman in her late 50s with a bleach blonde bob haircut and pearls that seemed to tighten around her neck whenever she smiled. She didn't even flinch when I demanded answers. "Mr. Collins," she said smoothly, "your family has failed to comply with HOA standards. Repeatedly. You left your trash cans visible past collection day. We issued a fine which you ignored. This is standard enforcement." I was stunned. "You're telling me you cut off my family's water over $50? We never even got the notice." She tapped her manicured nail on her clipboard. Ignorance of the rules is no excuse. In that moment, I realized this wasn't about trash cans or fines. This was about control, and Patricia wasn't going to give an inch. By the second day without water, things had escalated from inconvenience to chaos. My kids were cranky, their hair greasy from lack of showers. Sarah had resorted to buying packs of bottled water just so we could brush our teeth and boil pasta. I went to work unshaven, embarrassed to explain why. Neighbors started asking questions. "Why are you hauling jugs of water from the grocery store?" one asked, watching me unload the trunk. When I told them, their faces shifted from shock to anger. It wasn't just us. Apparently, Patricia had been tightening her grip for months. One family had been fined for leaving a bike on their porch. Another was threatened with foreclosure over a late fee. But shutting off water, that was new. That was terrifying. I knew I couldn't just wait for the HOA to change its mind. I called a lawyer who told me bluntly, "HOAs can't legally shut off your water. That's a violation of your rights. They're acting outside their authority." He advised me to document everything. So I did. I took photos of the dry sinks, videos of the dead faucets, copies of every receipt showing bottled water purchases. I even recorded my next confrontation with Patricia. "Patricia," I said, holding up my phone, "you have no legal right to do this. You've endangered my family." She smirked. "Go ahead, sue us. By the time you win, you'll be so thirsty you'll beg for our forgiveness." Her arrogance lit a fire in me. That night, Sarah and I stayed up late drafting a letter, not just for us, but for every neighbor who'd been pushed around. We slipped copies into mailboxes the next morning. By evening, people started showing up at our house. Frustrated parents, elderly couples, even teenagers sick of hearing their parents complain. One by one, they told their stories. Every single person had a tale of unfair fines, ridiculous rules, or intimidation tactics. Together, we realized this wasn't about trash cans or bikes or late fees. It was about power gone unchecked. And we were done playing by Patricia's rules. The following week, our cul-de-sac transformed from a collection of quiet suburban homes into a rallying ground. Cars lined the streets, lawn chairs popped up on driveways, and homemade signs appeared with slogans like, "Water is a right, not a privilege," and "Stop HOA tyranny." Patricia tried to stop us, of course. She sent out mass emails accusing me of spreading misinformation. She even showed up at our gathering with 2 board members, clipboard in hand, barking about noise violations. But this time, people didn't scatter. They stood firm. One of my neighbors, a retired firefighter named Joe, stepped forward. "You crossed the line, Patricia. Shutting off water, that's not just illegal, it's inhumane." The crowd roared with agreement. Patricia's face flushed crimson, but she refused to back down. This is what happens when residents ignore the rules. Order must be maintained. I raised my voice so everyone could hear. Order? This isn't order. It's abuse. You can't weaponize basic utilities just because someone disagrees with you. The rally was just the beginning. We formed a neighborhood committee to review the HOA bylaws. What we found was shocking. Patricia had quietly pushed through amendments giving the board discretionary enforcement powers. Most people hadn't even voted on them because the notices were buried in fine print. Fueled by anger and solidarity, we started a petition to recall the entire board. Within days, signatures poured in. Even residents who usually kept to themselves came out to sign. For the first time, Patricia wasn't the one holding the clipboard. We were. But Patricia wasn't going down without a fight. She hired an attorney, threatened defamation lawsuits, and doubled down on her smear campaign against me. Flyers appeared on doorsteps accusing my family of freeloading, of trying to destroy community harmony. But the harder she pushed, the more people saw her for what she was, a bully in pearls, desperate to hold on to power. The night of the recall vote felt like a courtroom drama. Dozens of residents packed into the community hall, voices buzzing with anticipation. At the front of the room sat Patricia, her pearls gleaming under the fluorescent lights, flanked by her loyal board members. Across from her sat us, neighbors united, tired but determined. The lawyer I'd hired stood up first, presenting the evidence. Recordings of Patricia admitting she shut off my water, photos of her enforcement notices, the amended bylaws pushed through without proper consent. Gasps echoed across the room. Patricia tried to defend herself, her voice sharp. "I acted in the best interest of this community. If we let one person break the rules, everyone will." But Joe, the retired firefighter, raised his voice from the back. "This isn't about rules, Patricia. This is about respect, and you've lost ours." When the ballots were passed around, you could feel the tension crackle. One by one, residents marked their votes. The board members tried to look confident, but beads of sweat betrayed them. Finally, the votes were tallied. The result was overwhelming. Patricia and her board were removed from power. A cheer erupted, shaking the walls. Neighbors hugged, kids laughed, and Sarah squeezed my hand so tightly I thought it might break. The very next day, the water company restored our service. The sound of rushing water through the pipes felt like victory itself. My kids danced around the kitchen sink as if it were a fountain of freedom. In the weeks that followed, the community elected a new board made up of everyday residents, people who cared about families, not control. Transparency replaced secrecy, fairness replaced intimidation, and Patricia, she sold her house quietly and moved away, her reign of power reduced to a cautionary tale. As I stood in my yard one evening, watching the sun set over our once divided neighborhood, I realized something. The HOA may have cut off my water, but they ended up unlocking something far more powerful. Unity. And in the end, that's what truly drowned Patricia's empire of control.